Okay, so I've got this coming out of the back of the garage, and I can't get in really close to show you guys because there's something going on that prevents me from getting in there right now. It's been going on for about a month. Let me show you. There's a blue jay up here sitting in her nest, and she has already hatched one egg. So she's got more in there, and I don't want to get too close to her and scare her. So I have not been able to go behind the garage in this corner for about a month. So hopefully she'll be gone soon with her babies. Okay, so now what I've done here is I went from the main line in the garage out to the timer. Normally the timer would be connected to the hose bib, and that's what I showed in my first video on installing the drip system in raised beds. So you would normally do that, but so what I had to do was I went from in the garage, I went from PEX to PVC, from PVC to hose thread, and then connected the timer. So you can do it that way, or you can just do it right off the hose bib. The hose bib, of course, is the easiest. That's what I showed in my previous video. I'll put a link below to that first video so you'll kind of get an idea. So out of the bottom of that timer, you have to just get a connector that goes from hose thread to the poly pipe. So you're coming off that with a hose thread PVC connector, and then you're screwing a connector that goes to the poly pipe. Now when you go in to get the part, just ask anybody in the hardware store, and they'll know what you're talking about. Just tell them you want to come out of a timer that is hose thread, and you want to go to the 3/4 inch or whatever you're using, 1/2 inch or whatever. I'm using 3/4. So you want to go from hose thread to the poly pipe. So it's not really that difficult. They'll just give you the connector that does that. So I'm coming off that, and I'm going right straight to poly. I'm not using a filter or anything this time. I'm going straight out because people kind of told me that it was way too complicated for them. So I have simplified this big time for them. You can do it this way. I did it the more conservative way, where I wanted to make sure that I had it filtered, that I had a pressure regulator on it, and so I didn't do it this time. This is a much simpler way for people, and it's been working fine for me now for the last 3 years or so, and I'm going to show you how I did this. So I'm coming out of the bottom of that with poly pipe, and I'm going down, and I'm going over to the north garden. And let me show you this. Now, I haven't buried it yet. I've left it on top of the ground, believe it or not, for the last 3 years. But I brought it over here to the grape arbor, and from the grape arbor, I'm snaking it along the arbor, and then I'm going about 30 feet into the north garden. And let me show you, once I get to the north garden, what I've done. Okay, so I'm in the north garden. I come along here with a T, and it goes up to a ball valve up here, and then it splits across here. And then I have it the same way on every bed. Come down here, same thing here, a T comes up to another T right there. And then I come here. I'm going to stop here and show you this bed because it continues on. I've got 6 beds on this side, but I need to redo this one here, because what's going on here is, let me show you. As you come along here, I had in this bed the garlic. So this was not a regular drip system. This was this nozzle here is a spray. It's like a 45-degree spray. And because garlic, I can't go along and put a drip on every garlic stalk. So it was basically a spray that got them all on both sides. I got another one over there. So I'm going to redo this because I don't want to plant garlic in this one again this fall, because it's been 3 years. So I'm going to rotate it. I'm going to put single plants in here. So I'm going to run this system here. This came up. We've got a T down there, came up to a ball valve, and then came up to another T, came over. It ran down the edge. I'm going to move it over 1 foot and go in this way to hit the plants with single drip. So now every bed has one of these ball valves. Because the reason is I could turn it on and I could spray all 11 beds in here at one time, but I don't want to because every bed has something different and different water needs. So I don't want to, like for instance, my tomato plants don't take the same requirements as my hot peppers. So my hot peppers, I go an extra day or two before I water them because they like the heat. They like it a little bit drier. At least that's my experience, what I found out. So my tomatoes, of course, get watered every day or every other day. So I want to be able to regulate them with this. So in other words, in each bed, I won't put my peppers in with my tomatoes. I try to stagger the beds and take put in the plants that have the same water requirements. So that's why I have a ball valve here. So when that water turns on, I can come into the garden and I can turn each one on that needs to be turned on. Now, if you watched my video on how to install the drip irrigation for raised beds, which I did down in the orchard, you'll get an idea of how to actually install all this piping. But let me give you a quick rundown. So down here, we've got a T. So the line comes in, we have a T here, and I have a T up here. This one here is complicated, ignore it, because they were out of these T's when I went and did this a couple years ago. And so I had to do like a hodgepodge kind of makeshift. So normally you would do one of these right here. And so it comes down here to this ball valve. Now with this ball valve, you have to go from the PVC to this thread here. And they make these right here, and it goes right into. Now there are two types of ball valves. There's this PVC ball valve, which is smooth, and you don't want this because then you have to glue and you have to do another step. You want one of these, which is it's threaded on both sides, and this screws in here. You just put a little bit of that pipe dope on, and you put it in like this. You put one on each side, and then it goes right into the tubing. You know, both sides, and you're pretty much done. They're only, you know, a couple bucks, $3 I think at the most. And so, or I don't know, I can't remember how much. It might be $3.50 or something. But anyways, this is much easier. Well, not easier. It's cheaper than using the inline poly valve that they make for this poly tubing. But this is a lot cheaper, especially if you have to do a bunch of them. If you only got one to do, then go ahead. I guess it's, you know, it's a lot quicker. So anyways, we have the T and the ball valve. This is the way I'm doing all of them. When I come up here though, I'm moving these in, and I'll show you how I do this. So first off, let me explain to you how I lay out these beds. These beds are 4 feet. I always come in 1 foot this way. So in other words, I start a plant right here. So it comes in a foot both ways, and then I come over 2 feet with another plant. And this plant here also is in 1 foot on each side. So basically I've got a 2 foot spacing between the plants. However, I've only got a 1 foot spacing here, and I don't care because it'll give me extra space on the outside of the bed. And so I don't care if they kind of cantilever over or, you know, spread out over the top here, because there's plenty of room to walk around these beds. So I've come in 1 foot, and then I come over 2 feet. Then I come down here 2 feet. I'm still coming in a foot. So I come in 2 feet, and I've got another plant. So each plant has a 2 foot spacing. I know that a lot of people like the square foot method. I really believe that the square foot gardening method is just too tight for plants. They need at least 2 feet. I'm even actually tight, in my opinion, going 2 feet. But anyways, I do it. I do 2 feet, another 2 feet, and I go all the way down. So in a 16-foot bed, I can put 16 plants. Now, I'm not changing this out every couple years because I'm changing the type of plants I'm growing in here. Basically, what I'm doing is I am going to leave this in here, and I'm going to put an extension in. But for right now, I'm not going to worry about it this year because I want to have both types in here, because I do change this out. I'm going to have garlic back in here again, and other things that like onions and whatnot that I want to put in here that are multiple plants. So I want to keep my sprayers in this bed, but I also want to have the drip system. So I want to have both options. So I'm going to put a valve in. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to show you exactly how I put in just the drip system for single plants. Okay, if you want to see how to do it for multiple plants, I'll put a link below to the video installing the drip system for the
for the trees down in the orchard. And that's how I use the sprayers on that. Now, I always like to simplify things. And so when I buy tools, I try to get standardized tools. In other words, I looked all over for a shovel or a spade, whatever you call it, that was exactly 12 inches long. Now this one is 12 and a half inches, so it's about a half an inch. So I can just go like this, and I can lay it down, and I can lay it down. So I can say here, and I can say here, and right there is my first one. I don't have to get my tape measure out. There's my first plant. Just like this. I got 1 foot right there, 1 foot, and it's right there. It's perfect. So I need to come in 1 foot. I put my mark here, and this is where my pipe is going to go in. So I'm going to drill a hole in here, right about an inch down or so, because I want my pipe to lay on the top. And I don't usually go too high with this. I still have to put a little bit more, I have to put some more worm castings and some compost chicken manure in here, so that'll be about a half an inch or so of that. So I'm going to come in, I'm like just like this one here, I'm coming down about an inch, and I'm going to put my hole here because I want this to lay on top of the soil. Oh, my battery's going dead. I think I can make it. Stupid thing. And this is not treated lumber, by the way. There we go, I'm in. And then I do have my metal that I have to cut out. Yeah, I know my body is in it, but there's nothing I can do about it, just the way the sun is. Of course, the drawback to these raised beds, of course, when you're using this metal, this is sharp stuff. I've never cut myself on it because when I'm working in the garden, I'm conscious of it. If you have kids or whatnot, you could, I've seen a lot of people take a piece of wood across the top of all their beds, and it kind of hides this, so you can't get your fingers onto it. Or cut out, they make these plastic, what are they? I think they're for roofing or something, but it's like an L shape, and it comes down over top of it, and you can do this along it. You would want to do that because this is a little dangerous. But I don't worry about it because I know that it's there, and I'm very careful when I'm working along the edge of the bed. And I am just cutting this metal, and I'm making it even more dangerous when I do it because now I've got some serious shards here. But there is really no other way that I can do this. I could try to cut a hole through the metal, and not have to have these sharp edges. But the problem is, if I try to cut it in a hole through here, I'm going to have metal shavings in the bed, and I don't want that. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and get my hammer. I'm going to flatten all this down. And now see, another advantage to that ball valve, I can work on this system and not have to turn. I mean, I can work on this bed without having to turn the whole system off, because I can just turn it off right there. And because I've got 5, 6, I got 7 beds that are already planted, and I don't want to turn them all off. So now when I cut this, I use what's called Pex Cutters. I wrote on here with a Sharpie, Pex. It's for cutting Pex Pipe. This is the best thing that I've found to cut this poly pipe with. Now I take my elbow, well, not my elbow, but an elbow. This, and also you want to make sure that you always keep these closed. These are really sharp. So these here are really frustrating for me. I don't know why. They have to put all this junk on the actual barb that I need to connect the hose with, and it's so frustrating. I think this is why people should not do drugs, because this is what you end up with. I know somebody that designed this had to have been smoking something. So sometimes it doesn't come off that easily. Well, that wasn't easy to me, but I mean, they could etch something in here. There's got to be another way to do it, but I don't know, maybe I'm just complaining. So I take this, put it through here, and I don't drop it on the ground. So I put it through like this. And I want my piping to come right up. I butt it right up against these little stops. And so I go like this, and I know that I'm going to be cutting it right there. So then I take these, try to mark this with my finger if I can, right there, and then I just cut it right on that line, just like that. And these work beautifully. If you don't have a pair of Pex Cutters, I've replaced all of my pipe in the garage. It was all PVC. I've gotten rid of most of the PVC and I've gone to Pex because I just love Pex. You don't have to worry about glue or anything like that. So if you don't know anything about Pex, look it up, and it's so much better than PVC. So now I'm going to go ahead and connect this one here. I'm leaving because I'm going to keep it. Like I said, I want to be able to run them back and forth. So haven't figured out how exactly I'm going to do that right now. I'll probably have to put an actual T in. I'll have it drop down and come up so that I'm switching back and forth between the two. So I'm not worried about that right now. I'll worry about that in the fall. So I'm going to do that with all of my beds. That way I can switch back and forth between spray nozzle and drip irrigation. Now, if you can't find these crimp rings, or if you don't want to use them and you don't want to buy the special tool to crimp it, you can, of course, just get these right here. These are just regular steel clamps. You know, the kind that, you know, regular hoses on an automobile. They're smaller. They're made for 3/4 pipes. So you can use those. And I couldn't get any more of these at the hardware store because everything's getting sucked up right now. So I went and bought some of these at my local hardware store. So you go ahead and just fit these on here like this. Whoops. Like this. Now, the nice thing about these, they do have a spiral. And let me show you. See these here? They're not just barbed. They do have a spiral that goes up slowly so that you can turn this, and it will actually, as you turn it, it'll thread it into the pipe just like that, which is kind of cool. Okay, so go ahead and crimp that down. I'm going to get my fat head in the way. And what you want to do is you don't want to crimp it in here. You want to come back on the barb. I always do it right about here. So you take it like this. You kind of know where your barb is, right about there. And then I crimp it down until each side meets. Just like that. Okay, so I'm going to put poly pipe on here, run it all the way down 16 feet. And then once that's on, I'm going to start putting the flag emitters in, okay? Okay, so here's my 16-foot pipe. Now, at the end of this here, I'm going to want to put one of these plugs here. And so you put this in here, you crimp it down, and that just stops the flow at the end. Now, I'm not going to put it on right now because I want to be able to, once I get this system all in, I want to be able to blow it out just in case there's any dirt that's stuck in there. So once I blow the system completely out, turn the water on and let it run for a minute, not even, I'm going to put this on, crimp it down, and I'll be good to go. Okay, so let me show you a little trick. Now, sometimes you put these in here and you try to reef on them as hard as you can. You just can't get it to go. Can't get it to go up to the stop. So let me show you a little trick. I just get my little heat gun and I warm it up. Now, I don't want to do it too much. I don't want to distort it. I just want to make it pliable. Soften it up a little bit. Not too much. I mean, I don't want to melt. There we go. Look at that. Right up to there. Whew. That is not easy to do sometimes. Okay, so I'm at the other end of the bed. I cut the pipe a little bit longer than 16 feet. Let me show you why. This pipe is impossible to work with because it's been coiled up for a long time. I don't know how long, and it is just almost impossible to get it to lay flat. So I'm taking it here, I'm going in a foot, and I am going to screw this down. Sure I am. Just like this. I'm putting it right into here. Just like that. I'm going to leave it like this in the sun. And like I said, I'm not going to plug up the other end anyways. I'm going to blow it out. And then once this has had time to sit for a couple days, it will, in the sun, it'll become more pliable and it'll be flat. It'll be straight. So I'm leaving it like that. I'm going to go ahead and put all my emitters in and do everything that I need to do. This just makes my life a lot simpler. When I'm all done putting my emitters in, I've got my plants in. It's going to be a couple days. When I'm all done, I'll cut it off here, put my plug in. Well, I'll blow it out first, cut it off, put my plug in, and take that off, and I'm ready to go. Okay, so I know what you're going to ask. Are my plants going to be in the same spot every time? The answer is yes. I always go 2 feet apart, 1 foot in, 2 feet apart. So there will always be a plant here. So when I go ahead and pop my emitter in, it's not going to change. So now, of course, I couldn't find a 3/4 inch. They make one. My hardware store was out of them. It's just like I showed in my previous video with the 1/2 inch. It's just it looks like a pair of pliers, and it's a punch tool, puts a hole in. They didn't have one in stock. I'm going with 3/4. Of course, they didn't have one. So I have to just take this, and you push really hard to make your hole. Now you have to decide, do you want your emitter pointed down, or I'm just going to have it like this, straight up. So I'm coming in a foot. I'm going to put my emitter in. So I'm going to punch straight down with this tool. It's not quite as easy as those pliers, but you just make your hole and you pop your emitter in, and you'll hear it click. Just like that. Now the beauty of this is you can spin them too. You can also remove these. These are the kind that you can pop out and you can clean them. So I like these emitters. A little bit more expensive, but not that much really. Okay, so I decided to go with the 2 gallon per hour emitters instead of the 4. Because I just have 11 beds in here, and I have a lot of emitters. And I know I don't run them all at the same time, but I just figured that if I wanted to, I could. So 2 gallon per hour emitters, and there they are running. It's looking good. And then the bed over here behind us here. I've got this bed done. So I've got 2 beds just about complete. And I'm running, yeah, those are potatoes down there, so I don't have emitters on that. And that's the pomegranate that I rescued that was over in the yard. Okay, just a few final thoughts. These connectors here, the blue ones, I bought from Home Depot. And they were the best price around. I have to admit that. But there's one thing I don't like about them. And this may seem like a small thing, but the barcode and the information paper on here, sometimes, you know, you try to pull it off gently and it just doesn't come off. I found, especially if you have them laying out in the sun when you're working, they kind of like mold to the plastic, it seems like. And some of them, I've taken like 5 minutes to get all this off of here, and it's really frustrating. And to me, it's a game changer for me, because I don't have time to stand out here in the hot sun trying to get this off of here. Now, I bought some from our local hardware store, and they're gray, but they're the same thing. They're the same kind of connector, and they're just a few pennies more. So I decided I'm going to the local hardware store to get them from now on, because what they have is they have a barcode etched into the plastic, and so I don't have to worry about all this, you know, taking this off, you know, and it's so frustrating for me, and it's just not worth it. So you might want to consider that if you go to buy these connectors. Now the second thing, the flag emitters, when I mentioned that you could take them apart and clean them, what you do is you just take the top and you unscrew the top, and the top pops off like this when you unscrew it. And so you can take it apart and clean it. So when I mentioned that you could take them off, I may have given the impression that you could pop them out of the hole that you made. You don't want to do that. You pull off the flag is what you do, and then it screws right back in again. And then thirdly, if you make a mistake and put a hole in the wrong spot, they also, whoops, almost dropped it. They make these plugs, and this came on a little plastic card, kind of like, remember the old model cars where you got all the pieces on this plastic stripping? This is what it is. I got like 10 of them or so, and it's just a little plug. I hope I can get close enough. Maybe you can see it. Maybe it won't focus, but that's all it is. If you make a mistake, you just pop one of these in, it plugs the hole, and then you can put the hole somewhere else. So that's it there. So that's it for installing drip irrigation in your raised beds. Now also stay tuned, because I'm going to be doing a video on mulching your beds, and the drip irrigation is going to come into play as far as mulch goes. Some of the best mulches to use. So stay tuned for that. And don't forget to subscribe. Now, when you subscribe, make sure that you hit that little bell so you'll get notifications when I upload a new video. All right, thanks a lot for watching, guys, and we'll catch you later.